Logan Ninefingers, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck. Caught in one feud too many, he's on the verge of becoming a dead barbarian, leaving nothing behind him but bad songs, dead friends, and a lot of happy enemies. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Himvar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Joe Abercrombie's The Blade itself. The Blade itself is a 2006 novel by Joe Abercrombie. It is the first book in the First Law trilogy, the first in his, series that take place in this world. It starts with the Logan Ninefingers, who's not quite as cool as Frodo Ninefingers, being attacked by a spear-wielding flathead. It's a little brutal right away, though with little to go on starting in the middle of things. It's fine, right? And it's also tinged with humor. Then we meet Glotka musing on stairs. He does not seem like a nice man, so there's plenty of room for redemption. I should say his initial musing really is relatable. He works for the Inquisition and doesn't seem to fear death. He's not fit, but he is fit for certain things, and he has very few teeth. Once upon a time, he was a dashing cavalryman. Once we learn a little of Logan and his isolated circumstances, we meet Jazal, a man that seems to be new money and has great arrogance, so at least he's got a new position. He is a captain in the military, it seems. I'm not entirely sure on that even, honestly. He's rather a forgettable character. But we see Glotka during his introduction, so no, they're in the same locale. He's not as admirable as, say, Colum West, who maybe isn't as admirable as we think he is anyways, who is a major in the army, or military rather, that's present. West is of lower status, or at least he was born in lower status. Dogman is another point of view. He's a companion of Logan's. He's not really that important in this book. He's got good hearing, and his parts of the book have soldiers and much cussing. It's a military fantasy piece and probably my least favorite point of view, but I think the setup of this novel is, well, hopefully making it well for the next two important books, right? There's this is probably not good. I have, Pharaoh, that's her name. See, I misspelled it as Ferp, and I forgot who it was for a second, but see, I remembered now. Is another point of view, introduced part 2, the only woman who gets one. She's full of fury and on the run in a murderous mood because of something that happened in the Empire. Another polity besides the Union in North. There are politics introduced rather well. There is political entity known as the Union, is in war of groups like merchants and conservatives. The power seems to be in the Chancellor's hand more than the King's. Surprise, magic is not evil necessarily, but the tone and mode seems a proper infusion of sword and sorcery into epic fantasy. I haven't been in a mood for Wheel of Time sort of epic fantasy for quite a while, but this was very fun. This has really been the only one besides Malazan that I had enjoyed for a while when I read this a few months ago. Speaking of magic, the Magus Baez is a fun take on the wise old man trope. Maybe a little much sometimes, but he's obviously what he is, right? So on the heroic aspects of this world, but seems fake in the more modern and corrupt aspects of the world. What's really interesting about it is the world seems very, very derivative and something typical of epic fantasy. And I'm not sure if Joe Abercrombie did this on purpose, but Abercrombie is definitely doing something here. I don't know if this is deconstruction of fantasy. This novel is full of aristocracy, so-called barbarians or savages from the north. In this case, nothing new, right? That's nothing new. But it gives the world some familiarity. The reader might not want that. It's really up to you. Like I said, I did enjoy my time with this novel, even though I'm being really facetious. So what separates it? And I think that's the tone, the storytelling and characters. It's what some would call grimdark, but in reality it's more Abercrombie, and it's just what he's writing, and there's people who would like to imitate him, I guess, but it's very much unique, I would say. Rite of Conquest rules the day. It's bloody fantasy. It's Arthuriana to a degree, but grittier, which if you read some medieval romances, they are full of swordplay. This is that, but for a modern sensibility. So that relates to the title. The blade itself is about the voice of the blade, one roaring or maybe warning. It depends. The name of the series has something to do with demons, which is, again, the first law. This book does a good job, I feel like, perspective. Sets up some stuff for betrayal. There's ideas of truth and justice, how civilizations and even people are viewed by different sorts of people. It's rather realistic, though the reason for the label of grimdark kind of escapes me, actually. It's not as cynical as A Song of Ice and Fire, for which I liked this better than A Song of Ice and Fire, because I feel like Martin hates humanity, and he's got some problems. Anyways, there's a little bit of bloat here as well, which is a problem in epic fantasy. It's funny because it's not so much as a subversion that he cuts out on the bloat, which, Malazan does the same thing. So extra stuff could probably be trimmed. But overall, Apple Womble does a fine job. I was happy reading this novel, and I read book 2, actually, and I'll give you more thoughts on that. But I will suffice it to say for this review that I enjoyed book 1 more than book 2, and I have not yet read book 3, but I will. So, anyways, I'll catch you next time. P.S. There is absolutely no good cover for this book. I have not been able to find a good cover for this book. They all stink, and that is just a problem of fantasy covers in general, but this gets the butt end of that stick. There's no good cover for this book. Take that as you will.